Hello and welcome to this video. If you are watching this, it means 2021 is coming to an end and you are still alive, which is a great news. In this episode, like in all my previous ones, I will be mostly waving my hands and talking stuff, which might also be great or become boring, I don't know, I haven't decided yet. So, some of you might be wondering what happened, why I stopped making new videos. Well, that's a very good question. This video has started as another simple repair video, because hard times, chip shortage, people are marching in the streets with signs demanding video cards, or maybe something else, I'm not entirely sure. But the emphasis is on marching in the streets and demanding things these days. So being a reasonable person as I am, I decided to take my action as best as I know, and I bought a broken RX 580. Then I tried to repair it, then I bought another one, and soon enough things spiraled out of control, and here I am, talking to you, my dear viewer. So let's see together if it makes any sense buying and fixing old video cards during this global everything shortage. I hope you'll enjoy it. So, another beautiful day, another dead GPU. Today we have MSI RX 580. This is 8GB version. This is something that I picked up locally some time ago, and I didn't have enough time to try to fix this. And yeah, again, this is not a new card. What is it, like 6 years now since this came out? So yeah, but in the current state of things, I think it's a pretty reasonable thing to do and try to revive this one. By the way, guys, sorry for the audio quality. I'm recording this on a built-in mic in the camera because I lended my mic to someone, and as we all know, lended things have a tendency to become lost things. So it is what it is. I will try to figure out something as we go by. So let me disassemble this and meet me for some measurements. Okay, so I visually checked this board, everything looks fine, no signs of any catastrophic damage or any culinary adventurers, which is always a good sign, and it basically means that we got here first. Okay, so let's measure the power lines, the way they appear on power on sequence. So, first we have plus 12 volts from PCI Express, 4 kilo ohms and increasing, that's fine. Next we have 3.3 volts from PCI Express line, 3 kilo ohms again, fine. Next 12 volts external line 1, 2 and 3. That looks perfectly fine, everything above kilo ohms. Next in our power on sequence we should have 1.8 volts. 1.8 volts gonna be formed by LDO somewhere on this board, but there's a shortcut on 500 and I think 400 series Radeon chips to find 1.8 volts LDO. Here we have a key of basically pin number 1 of a chip. So we look at the next side of IC chip, and here we have 3 capacitors, which on one side should have a ground. Yeah, I'm trying to not knock them off. Okay, so here we have a ground, and on next side we should have 1.8 volts. Yeah, this doesn't look good. 84 ohms is way too low for a 1.8 volt line. Okay, but this is not the end of the story. There are a lot of things, not only GPU, that is using 1.8 volts, so maybe something is pulling it low. Okay, next we would have to have power express supply of 0.9 volts for PCI Express lines, or I should say PCI Express controller of GPU. And it should be this bugger. Yeah. Again, this doesn't look promising. Like 1 ohm is, again, way too low for RX series. It should be, I believe, something between 10 and 20 ohms, something there. So as you can hear from my voice, my enthusiasm is already gone. But okay, so it doesn't matter. Let's continue. What next? Next we should have our memory supply MVDD. And I believe it should be this one. So here we have a ground. Yep, and 33 ohms. That looks perfectly reasonable. It should depend on a memory manufacturer. Here we have Micron memory. I think 33 ohms is okay for Micron memory. What next? Next we should have VDDCI. It should be this one. 23 odd ohms. Again, this looks perfectly reasonable. And as last measurement, we have our main GPU power supply, VDDC. This is all 6 phases. Let's measure on the GPU side here. Yeah, 0.6 ohms. Again, this looks fine. On this newer RX 500 series, it's really low. It's not easy to measure that. Like, the main idea, it shouldn't be 0. Like, if you have 0 ohms, like short ground, then yeah, it's not good. So, the good news is that we don't have any shorts from 12 volt power supplies to our GPU or to our memory. That's always a good thing to have on board. The worst thing is power supply being that low for PCI Express lines. Like, if I see something like that, the first and the most important thing that I want to check now is our PCI Express lines. So let's switch our multimeter to diode mode and let's see what we have. 1, 2, 3. This will be our ref clock. And we don't have anything here. Yeah, this is again not a good sign. Not a good sign at all. We have both ref clocks open lines and we have a short between them. That's really bad thing to have again. Let's check on the other side. And again we have a short and we have short to ground. Yeah. Okay, so what that means? It means that we have an open line on a reference clock that is incoming from PCI Express side, and we have shorts on both the receive lines of first differential pair of PCI Express data lines. So basically what that means, that there is no freaking way this card will be identified by the system. Like, never, in any circumstances at all. Yeah, guys, I'm laughing because it seems that this camera, when I turn it on, it automatically makes any card that sits on my table die instantly. Last week I had about 5 boards and all of them were like easy fixes. Some VRAMs, some biases, something like that. And right when I decide to record a video to my YouTube channel and I buy some unknown board, yeah, we continue a streak of dead GPUs. Okay, so let me search for some donor board and I promise we'll have a take number 2. So, take number 2. Couple weeks have passed and I was able to get my hands on this donor board. I bought it here locally and it's from Asus RX 580 4GB version. Yeah, but that was pretty hard. I mean, the current situation in the market is what I would call pure insanity at its finest. For instance, on eBay, that RX 580 goes for something like $200, at least here in Europe, and that is, I don't know how to call that. Again, pure insanity. Like, how can you buy a dead board for, almost 200 euros? And I have a hunch that all those boards already have gone through a lot of, service centers that said it's 100 dead GPU or something like that, and, try to sell that for as much as you can on, again, eBay or something else. So it's tough, very tough. But since I got myself into all of this hassle, well, let's continue and at least I will make some content. Okay, let's begin by, again, checking our differential lines. Maybe we don't even have to take all this cooling and it's already obvious that something is very wrong. Okay, no shorts on plus 12 or plus 3.3. Now our diff lines. Ref clock seems to be okay. First RX pair okay. TX pair also seems to be okay. Okay, let's take our cooling solution. Okay, again, as we did with our previous board, let's quickly go through our main power supplies. So we have a dead short on our main GPU power supply, and also PCI Express power supply is shorted. That's, again, doesn't look very promising. Now let me look under microscope and I'll try to find some blown components or something else wrong. So I have checked board for any blown components on our power supplies and everything seems to be fine. Didn't found any burn marks or anything else like that. Yeah, but I couldn't say the same thing about our HDMI output port. As you can see, there has been some unfortunate events taking place here. So here we have a couple of resistors that have literally evaporated into thin ether. And this is our LVDS line caps. So here we have all of our HDMI port LVDS data lines. And also we have Open DDS chip. I think these are display data channel, those two lines. And this chip is responsible for those lines. There can be many reasons why this kind of damage happens. Most often you see blown HDMI ports after lighting has hit the house, or user just plugged something into HDMI port that shouldn't be plugged there. Anyways, 99% of time this means also a dead GPU. There's always hope, as the saying goes, hope dies last. So let's measure our LVDS lines and see what we have here. So I like to use diode mode for that. And let's see what kind of voltage drop do we have between our ground and our LVDS lines. First, I think we should check the good data lines. This is HDMI port number 2. Let's see, what do we have here? 180 millivolts of drop. And it should be same on all the lines. This also looks fine. Okay, and here's our bad port. What do we have here? Yeah, 652 millivolts. That's almost a short, 62, 40, and dropping. Again, all of those lines seems to be shot. Oh, this one is almost okay. So 1, 2 good lines. Yeah, and everything else this is dead short. Again, that is very, very bad news. Let's try to remove all the shorts from our power supplies. Let's remove those burned components. Maybe our caps didn't survive and we have basically a short through those caps into our disaster zone. Who knows? Let me do all those manipulations of the camera and I will get back to you with the results. So here's the results of my attempts to find shorts on our power lines. And here you can see thermal image of our GPU, and with a wire I have connected plus 0.8 volts to our PCI Express line. Currently I'm having something like 5 amps running into this GPU, and we can clearly see that our short is on the GPU between the substrate and the GPU PCB. So that's more or less it. I don't think there is need for any more evidence that this GPU is absolutely dead. Okay, I got myself into all of this and already bought 2 dead boards, so yeah, why not? Let's continue. Let's see what happens. Let's see how many more dead boards do I have to buy until I find, well, a GPU that is alive. Of course, at some point I will have to stop. This may take a while, because I'm not gonna buy any boards for, 200 euros or so. But yeah, let's try and keep this experiment running. Change of strategy, everyone. People say, buy in bulk, save a buck, or something like that. Okay, I might actually made that up just now, but you get the point. Long story short, I bought 4 RX 580 for a very reasonable price. That's all things considered. And this is what I called miner's special. Why, you might ask? Well, let me show you. Miners are people that work underground.
These men work in the dark. They see everything.
So apart from bitcoins and, other crypto, there seems to be a lot of moisture there also. Moisture and video cards don't do well together. But other things like this beautiful moss here on this copper heat pipe seems to be doing just fine. So what now? Now I need to hope that there is at least one GPU chip that is alive here. Then I can assemble at least one good card and again just hope to get my money back by selling it. That's 1 out of 4, which is, pretty good chances. Now I'm not gonna measure, all of them on camera, or this video again will be like 2 hours long and nobody ever will watch it. Let's do it like that. I will find one card that has all of its power supplies running okay. I will do some resistance measurements on camera, and I also will measure those power supplies. Then let's look at the power consumption of this card. I think that is a very useful information for those of you that are, repairing similar cards. Things like that can get you back on track easily. So what did I find? I found that all 4 of those cards has absolutely functional power supplies. I couldn't find anything wrong with them. So this is one of those cards, and let's quickly again go through all the resistances. 12 volts from PCI Express, 3.3 volts from PCI Express, external 12 volts, PCI Express power supply, VDD-CI, that is memory controller power supply, and VDD, which is our memory power supply. And yes, 90-20 ohms is okay, because this is, again, Samsung memory, and Samsung has usually the lowest resistance from all the manufacturers. And finally, this is our 1.8 volts. I usually find something like 4 kilo ohms here, but close enough. Now let's put this card in a riser, let's give it some juice, and let's measure the voltages. Okay, let's turn our power supply. That's 0.9 PCI Express voltage, 0.95 PCI, 1.5 volts for our memory chips, almost 0.9 our main GPU voltage, and finally let's check quickly our 1.8 volts. So now I have connected riser to my test PC, and let's see what happens when we set this card as primary and turn on our test PC. And of course we have our famous B2. And this is it, nothing happens after that. All 4 cards' behavior is basically the same. They all have good working power supplies, and they all stop booting on a code B2. Now, I was a busy bee of the camera, and I have managed to check all 4 of those cards in a software called T-Server. If some of you didn't already know what I'm talking about, a year or so ago there was a leak from, as I understand, certified AMD Service Center, and their internal software, which is called T-Server, had leaked. So now we have at our disposal not only software for NVIDIA cards, which was mods, but we also have official AMD software for checking AMD GPUs. If that is something that you are interested in, want to know more about, leave a comment below and I might make a video about it. But yeah, basically in this case it didn't help much. 3 cards showed no errors at all, and 1 card showed errors on all memory channels, which again doesn't help much. So what is my plan now? Now I will be working based on a couple assumptions. First of all, as you can see here, on these Asus cards, there is absolutely no cooling for RAM chips. It's not that this one was disassembled and somebody stole, thermal pads from all these chips. No, these cards came like that from the factory. This heatsink goes like that, and this part basically covers all 4 of those RAM chips, and these 4 poor suckers have maybe some airflow going through these hot fins. So when this card works, even in usual, gaming environment, those RAM chips are already really suffering. And when we do get in a crypto mining, where basically all the load is on the memory, it gets even worse. And if I zoom in like that, I hope you can see that on all the RAM chips there is this dark spot here in the center of the chip, which again shows that those poor suckers had a really bad time. So now my plan is to take a set of 8 RAM chips, which is tested and I know it works on other cards, try to reball that memory and put it back here. And I think I will do that for all the cards. Well, at least that's the plan for now. So let's see how that goes. And I'm back with some good news. So here is a TLDR for those of you who are already on the brink of falling asleep. 2 out of 4 GPUs seems to be fully functional. 1 needs more testing and 1 has dead memory controller. Now you can stop worrying and finally fall asleep. For the rest of you, here's how it went. All cards had modified BIOSes. This is again a standard thing for miners special. And if you buy a card like that, this should be maybe second thing that you check after, usual voltages, resistances routine. So as usual with these cards, memory was heavily overclocked in BIOS to something like 2.1 gig. One in stock, it's like, I think 1.75, 1.8 for Asus 4 gig version. And memory timings were also more aggressive. So as soon as I uploaded original BIOSes to those cards, they started booting just fine and gave picture. Some of them even booted to Windows, but when loaded with any 3D application, they had noticeable artifacts. Then I started to dig deeper. I tested these cards into server again, and now I was constantly increasing memory frequency, and sure enough, all cards started sipping random errors with frequencies above, let's say, 1.7 gigs or so. But this one still had static errors on all channels, even on minimal memory frequency of, I think, 300 megahertz. Which, by the way, is the frequency that by default all Memphis tests are run in T-Server. So yeah, my first assumptions about overmined memory were confirmed, and I proceeded to change weaker memory chips that had errors even on stock frequencies. After changing probably like 10 of these, I had all 3 cards running 3D without any artifacts or errors in T-Server. Unfortunately, this one didn't care about any of my attempts, any new chips, and still showed errors on all channels. In my experience, this means that memory controller inside the GPU has had enough and went to early retirement. But this is where it gets, tricky. Only way to tell for sure and with 100% certainty is to put this GPU on a previously working donor board and test it that way. So I went and put this GPU to our first MSI board that had shorted PCI Express lanes, and sure enough, nothing had changed, still all channels had errors. So at that point, I played sad music and paid my respect to our third fallen GPU in this series. Next, I took one of the working GPUs from these 4 gig Asus cards and put it on this 8 gig MSI board. Now I tested this board for a couple of days in Farmark, mining, some games, well, my usual, testing routine, and it seems to behave just fine. So I can't believe that I'm actually saying this, and I should probably knock on wood. Actually, that was my head. But after years and years of hard work, many failed attempts, it finally looks like we have a first live GPU on this channel. Amazing thing. I also started testing these 2 working boards, and one seems to be fine, and this one is fine in all 3D apps. But when mining crypto, it crashes miner every 3 or 4 hours. Now this again shows that this leftover memory is just hanging there by the thread, and here I have a moral consideration to make. Over these 4 or 5 months that I was running this experiment, I was actively trying to buy cheap non-working cards on eBay, local LADs, it doesn't matter. And I have made an impression that the whole secondary video card market had become this, how should I put it more mildly, pool of stinking pus filled with maggots, scammers, and other lowest life forms that are just feeding on all of this market bubble.
There's a monster at the end of it.
You won't believe how many times I was almost scammed, and then the stress I had went through to get my money back. So I decided that I'm sure as hell won't be selling these cards with almost dead memory and participating actively in all this shit show myself. We all know cliché about how reputation is earned but not bought and blah blah blah, and it's true. But I might also add that in repair business it's lost only once, and after that no one will ever want to have anything to do with you ever. So I have ordered 2 sets of new 8 gig memory. Well, let's again be honest here and say that there is no new memory on the market. It's of course old new, or new old stock, call it whatever you want. So I have ordered that memory from the usual places, and I will change it on these two boards. I will probably spend couple €100 more on this project because memory prices are high and all my donor boards are basically already stripped. But at least the person who buys this card won't have to throw it in a garbage bin after a couple of months and then do a voodoo doll ritual on me. I will put probable profit numbers on the screen. I'm assuming here that 8 gig RX 580 at the moment of filming this goes somewhere around €380 average. That is, if you want to sell it fast. I have seen sold them as high as 500, but I have my doubts about buyers' mental health state there. And I still don't know for sure if we have 2 or 3 working cars. So let's say 2.5. Now to answer the title question. Is it worth buying dead cars and fixing them? Well, a couple of years ago, I would say sure, without, even thinking. But in the current state of things, well, only if you are very lucky or have a good contacts with people that have large mining farms and don't bother sorting out dead GPUs. Or maybe you have other means to access lots of unsorted cars. Just buying random cards and hoping to find live GPU has, I would say, the same odds as winning a lottery. So better just go and buy lottery tickets. Then if you're really lucky, you won't need fixing like anything ever. So this wraps it up. Hope you found it useful and maybe learned something. See you in the next one.